Hello, welcome back to another exciting episode of Summoner's War. I am your host, LPO Tree. Today we're going to talk about your noob guide to the elemental rift beasts. Now, if you're like 2 weeks in, you're going to have a hard time doing these. Make sure your towers are maxed, your arena towers. If you don't know how to do that, you just farm like you're probably doing in Guild Wars, where you just set up a one monster defense and you tank your score so low that you're just fighting other people with one monster defenses. Get your glory towers maxed, because the higher those are, the easier these get. So the easiest one for me was this one. Now your biggest focus is to, like, especially if you're new at the game, is to kind of limit how many monsters you're actually farming for. Which means all these dungeons should have, the same units. That way you don't have to keep making more and more for each specific dungeon. And so the ones I really recommend are the 2 water twins and Crow. Now for this one in particular, I ran Jasoon. Actually, if you only have your Bernard 5-star put in the back, I didn't have her. I actually had this other guy, Mr. Timmy, and I had him on attack, HP, defense. As the 2 tanks, you have Bernard as your leader at the moment, but I think this one's better now because it works with the water twins and Crow now. Before I had like Pung Bake and any other kind of wind damage dealer in the back. That's pretty much what you need, but the water twins are so much more stronger. So if you don't have the water twins, any kind of wind damage dealer, you saw me use Naomi, I have Pung Bake, I have Teshar, and a bunch of other ones. But having these 3 as the core works really well. You can get Timmy here in the Guild Wars shop with just keep buying those things, the pieces. But you kind of need a max skill. If you don't have him, you can just stick with Jasoon, and you can also use, even though they gave this out when he came out, this guy. Only, I think one of these should be HP. I think one of these 2. Because you want, ideally you want him frontline. So if I was going to get rid of this guy, this guy works because he's a huge leader skill, and frontline as long as you have like an HP thing on him. This actually should be fine anyway. My Bernard isn't ruined very well, obviously. I don't really use him at all. But this is kind of what you want to think about for your water rift. Now these used to be a lot harder. They used to have more HP, and they used to be a 3rd stage. They got rid of one of the middle ones, but the 3rd stage used to be really difficult for people just to clear it. Now you just have to knock them down once, and then 1 groggy state, and then the next, his next health bar, you kill him, you win. And that's basically what your goal is. For all your teams, you want to try to get a defense break and a branding, and then you do crazy amounts of damage. And really all you needed was 2.5 million damage at the end of the groggy state. Because when you beat him for another 500 damage, it's 500 or is it 200? But you get 500 for killing him. So I think it's 2.5, and then another 5 will give you 3. And then when he's down at 3, you get an extra 500, and that's triple S. And it really doesn't matter if one of them dies. As long as you have the damage to clear it. And like I said, because I used to have him on, I used to have Iger, speed, crit damage, HP, so he can tank that front line. But since the new dungeons, I was experimenting with him and that didn't work at all. So what I like to do is if you're just starting it, I always have a 2.5 healer set. So in this case it's Bella and Wahi. If you don't Wahi, you can use Colleen. Or you can use like a Perna or something, depending on what you do have. Some people even went as far as Jasoon, which I probably don't recommend in this one. But in this case, 2 healers, and then I have a turn cycler with Vertiheal. You know, I mean, Vertiheal is free to play. If you don't have her, that's why I have, like, if you can do one of the pandas in the front line, because they have the healing over time. But in this one, I actually switched with the Ninetales over the Harpy, the Fire Harpy. Even though I didn't do any of these things yet. If you can build her strong enough to tank the front line, she can use this skill to heal herself, and then once she's cleansed of the shock effect, then she doesn't take as much damage at all. It's like glancing or a normal attack. She doesn't usually die. Hua is just for damage. In this rift, Hua does a crazy amount of damage. So this is one of my first teams using against this rift. And like I said, they made this rift a lot easier than when it first came out. Sounds like a speed run almost. Now, some people have the Fire Rift as their easiest one, and this is about as free to play as you can get. Obviously, you don't have these two. You can do any kind of water damage dealers, preferably. This guy's you get free. I have never used him in this raid. I always use the water homunculus, so this might not work. Attack crit damage, attack with 2 sets of revenge, and it gave these artifacts. So more attack, and then I guess counter attack if I get it, and then I don't know what this one even does. But hopefully, I prefer the team up one because I could team up with the Rauk in this, and basically the only place I'm going to be using Lapis is in the Fire Rift. So if you don't have this kind of team, instead of the Water Twins, you can have units that have more than one AoE, just to get that kind of consistency. And especially if you have the 2 Inigamis that do the team up, it'll get it off cooldown, and hopefully whenever the thing releases his minions, the monster with the AoE will use it. Hopefully. Also consider the easiest one because the two water twins do the most damage to this fire one. That's why it's kind of easy to drain the bar on his last stage. The revenge does work at this stage, but there you go, counter, kill it. See? And so my water homunculus is, I think it's Swift Revenge for the same purpose. Counter? Oh. So not too bad. Now this is the cheat code if you have one of these, Faye. Otherwise you can probably stick with the same team like normal. If you don't have Perna, you need some other kind of frontline damage dealer. I mean, so I have Leica, you can use your monkeys, you can use your pandas. I'm gonna stick with it for now. Basically any kind of frontline damage dealer. You know, or a tank. Because these things can do enough damage. You don't really care too much about the shield, so let's get into the dungeon. So this boss will create its own shield, kind of like Rena or one of those annoying monsters. And you need to do technically single target damage. However, the team up will count as single targets for each one. And as you can, and then when he has no shield, you can just do flat out damage. That's why it doesn't really matter. It's only when he has a shield that any consecutive hits will do less damage. So really build your twins, Route, Crow, and hopefully you get this guy. But if not, you need some other kind of attack buff healer. But he has a good dungeon skill leader also, that's why he's pretty good. So when I did when the twins teamed up, you can see the boss's damage go lower and lower when he has a shield. It went from like, 1,500 to basically like under 20, I think it was. It did like 10 damage. But once that shield's broken, he's just dead. And so even my best team, my highest damage team had Rauk in the front line. The Rauk is just normal Rauk in all my videos. And then if you get lucky, Faye can just one-shot the boss in the second stage all the way through. Let's go. Now for the dark one, you basically called it. This whole front line again, Wahi and Dark Vampire. If you don't have that one, Colleen's fine too. Some people run a backline healer because if you don't have both of these and one of them gets taken, that's basically what this does, then you might lose your healing and then the boss will just kind of start taking away at your team. But in this case, I have two healers in the front line. It should be fine. So what this boss does, it does like the Necro thing where it kidnaps one of your creatures. You need to do hits to the boss to get him back. And that's what this number here is. So I need to do 23 more hits to get Wahi back. Or you knock down the boss. And before all my teams, this guy wasn't on violent, he was actually on full fight, just because when you farm these like crazy, you just get tons and tons of fight runes. And actually ended up having a good set, and I just used it on that. But since the new one with the Punisher's one, where you want that second skill to work, I ruined him for violent to try to be more consistent, but he's still sucking that raid. And so now maybe I'll switch him back during free rune removal. But there's really no point either way. So basically, this is a really good team for most of them. You just switch out units here and there. So when you're doing these raids, most likely you're having trouble with enough damage, so you want to make sure those glory towers are maxed. You know, especially the attack ones, the crit damage, and the defense one. The defense one helps especially with the wind boss. But remember, attack towards the element, everything just stacks up like crazy. You're just not even, you can't even imagine how strong having those glory towers are to everything in the game. So make sure you do those first. Remember, these used to be end game stuff, so if you're just starting, if you're not even level 50 yet, if you don't even have 6-star monsters, then these might be a little bit extra hard for you. But hopefully this little guide helps a little bit. I can show you my... I don't know why I just can't do that. I'll quickly go over the runes I have, or at least the stats. Speed, defense, HP. I can give them artifacts if I want to. Speed, attack, crit damage. Attack, crit damage. Might change this to violent eventually. Rock is on violent. Speed, attack, crit damage. Attack, crit damage. This is kind of useless, except for this part. But also attack, crit damage. Perna's only 50 crit rate, but it's good enough. And Perna crits like crazy anyway, even on water units. That's all you need, 50. Has that elemental advantage on everything. Here's Faye if you wanted to see it. Just a rage, revenge. It's not even max guild. I probably like stripped her runes for something else. These are the same. So attack, HP, crit damage on Swift. Make sure this skill's maxed. Wahi, speed, defense, HP. These runes are pretty bad. This is Swa on Swift, attack, crit damage. I think most people have speed slot too, but mine are taken. She hits hard, especially with this thing. Units of opposing elements, so fire, do a lot more damage on the opposing element in the rifts. Here's Bella. Bella's just whatever. Very much whatever. Don't really care. Oh, same rock. Bird. speed, attack, crit damage. Too soon. Speed, HP. Bernard. Speed, attack, crit damage. These aren't even upgraded. Lapis, attack, crit damage. Okay, that is everything. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope this helps. Thank you for watching. I'm LPO3 and have a good night.